Hello everyone, let's investigate here. An 18-year-old girl from United States mysteriously vanished during her high school graduation trip to Aruba in the Caribbean. The local authorities narrowed down to at least 5 suspects, but none of them was found guilty. This case quickly caught the attention of different media sources, and the United States even deployed the FBI to Aruba to investigate further. Today, we will be discussing the disappearance of a teenage girl in Aruba. Natalee Holloway was born in 1986, and she was 18-year-old at the time. Natalee lived with her mom and her brother after her parents got divorced. Her mother, Elizabeth Holloway, married a prominent Alabama businessman, and the family moved to Mountain Brook, Alabama, and resided in the wealthy suburb of Birmingham. Natalee works really hard and was admitted to Mountain Brook High School, which was one of the best high schools in Alabama. In May of 2005, Natalee graduated from high school and was offered a full scholarship to University of Alabama, where she planned to pursue a pre-med track. It is a tradition for Mountain Brook High School to host a trip for the graduating class, and they planned this year's trip to Aruba in the Caribbean. Aruba is an island and a constituent country of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the mid-south of Caribbean Sea, about 18 miles north of the Venezuelan peninsula. Aruba has a dry climate and an arid of desert, cactus-strewn landscape. Aruba has different beaches where you can see the Caribbean Sea, and the weather has helped tourism as visitors to the island can reliably expect a warm, sunny clear skies year-round, which made Aruba one of the top tourist destinations in the Caribbean. Therefore, Mountain Brook High School decided to plan a 5-day graduation trip for their students in Aruba. But then on the very last day of the trip, Natalee mysteriously disappeared. So what happened to Natalee? And how did she disappear? Let's go ahead and start the story from the very beginning. On this day, Natalee, along with 124 classmates and 7 school officials, headed to Aruba from Alabama. The trip is from May 26th to May 30th, and everyone was super excited for it. Upon arriving at Aruba, students started partying early in the morning and enjoyed all kinds of different activities around the island. And of course, Natalee joined on the action and was partying a little too hard. Natalee loves drinking. She started to drink early in the morning, and some of her classmates saw she was drinking way too much and tried to stop her. But Natalee told them that they should relax and enjoy the time on the island. The school officials will call and check on the students once a day to make sure everything is okay and everyone is safe. But since there were only 7 of them, it was nearly impossible to take care of every single one of the students. Therefore, they did not know about Natalee's situation. On May 29th, the last day before the trip was over, everyone felt the trip was way too short, and time passed by way too fast. Natalee and a bunch of other classmates decided to end their trip on the island by going to a local casino. As you can see from the surveillance footage, Natalee was sitting near the table, next to a few of her classmates. Around 1 a.m., the casino is about to close. Some of the classmates decided to head back to the hotel since they have a flight to catch on the next day. But some decided to bar hop since it was the last night they will be on Aruba. And of course, Natalee's friends knew she wouldn't miss out on this opportunity, so they began to look for Natalee. But it was at this time they realized that Natalee was no longer in the casino, and no one knew where she went. But they didn't think too much. They thought Natalee was too tired, so she went back to the hotel first. On the next day, May 30th, it was the day that they wrap up their trip and fly back to Alabama. The school officials finally noticed that Natalee is missing. They tried to call her phone, but the line was always occupied. They quickly found Natalee's room, and they saw that her luggage and her passport were still in the room. One of the classmates then reported that around 1:30 a.m. last night, he saw Natalee got into a car with 3 different strangers. Now the school officials started to realize something might have happened to Natalee. They quickly reported to local police and then contacted Natalee's parents in Alabama. After learning it was a tourist that had gone missing, the local authorities deployed a dive team to search underwater around the island. There were over 1,000 participants, including local officials and volunteers, that joined the rescue effort. After searching for a week, they came up empty. Immediately following Natalee's missed flight, her mother and stepfather flew with friends to Aruba by private jet. Within 4 hours of landing on the island, the parents presented the Aruban police with the name and address of Joran Vandersloot, who was the person with whom Natalee left with at the casino. And the classmate recognized him as one of the 3 strangers who took Natalee that night. The parents and the friends went to Joran's home with 2 Aruban policemen to look for Natalee. Joran initially denied knowing any girl named Natalee, and he then quickly changed his statement and told the following story. Deepak Kalpo, Satish Kalpo, and him brought Natalee back to her hotel that night. Joran related that they drove Natalee to the California Lighthouse area because she wanted to see sharks. They later dropped her off at the hotel around 2 a.m. According to Joran, Natalee was so drunk that she fell down as she exited the car, but she refused his help. He stated that as he and the Kalpo brothers were driving away, Natalee was approached by 2 men in a black shirt similar to those worn by the security guards. The police then quickly contacted the hotel and pulled out the surveillance footage and indicated that Natalee did not appear on any nighttime surveillance camera footage. The police then reached out to these 2 guards, Nick Jones and Abraham Jones. But oddly enough, the 2 guards quit their jobs a day after Natalee went missing. This just made them extremely suspicious. On June 5th, 2005, 10 days after the disappearance of Natalee, Aruban police detained Nick John and Abraham Jones from the nearby hotel on suspicion of murder and kidnapping. But then they stated that they had nothing to do with Natalee's disappearance. They planned on quitting their jobs a long time ago. It was merely a coincidence, and they didn't know Natalee at all. The police then switched their primary suspects to Joran and the Kalpo brothers. On June 9th, Joran and the Kalpo brothers were arrested on suspicions of the kidnapping and murder of Natalee. This time around, Joran and the Kalpo brother changed their previous statement. They didn't send Natalee back to the hotel that night. They went to the beach, and the Kalpo brothers dropped off Joran and Natalee and left. Joran stated that Natalee would like to spend more time with him, but he had to leave because he has classes on the following day. He then left Natalee alone at the beach. After knowing that Natalee went missing, he felt really guilty for leaving her alone at the beach, and he was really scared. That's why he lied on his first statement. The police obviously thought Joran was lying, so they did more investigation on these 3 suspects. Unfortunately, after a month, the Kalpo brothers were released due to lack of evidence, but Joran was detained for another 60 days. The search continued, and more volunteers joined on the rescue mission. On July 4th, the Royal Netherlands Air Force deployed 3 F-16 aircraft equipped with infrared sensors to aid the search, but the results came up empty. A gardener claimed to have seen Joran attempting to hide his face as he drove into the club with Kalpo brothers on the very early morning of May 30th between 2:30 a.m. and 3 a.m. Another person, the jogger, claimed to have seen men burying a blonde-haired woman in the landfill during the afternoon of May 30th. But the police had searched the landfill in the days following Natalee's disappearance. After the jogger's statements, the landfill was searched 3 more times. The FBI even used cadaver dogs to assist in the recovery operation. The searches were fruitless. Natalee's family initially offered $175,000 and donors offers $50,000 to her safe return. 2 months after her disappearance, the reward was increased from $200,000 to $1 million, with a $100,000 reward for information leading to the location of her remains. Investigators found a piece of duct tape with stranded of blonde hair attached to it. The samples were tested at a Dutch lab. A group from Aruban police and prosecutor's office then traveled to the FBI Central Laboratory in Virginia to consult with American investigators. The hair samples were tested the second time. Later, the FBI announced that the hair samples did not belong to Natalee. After the disappearance of Natalee, the tourist industry in Aruba took a huge hit, and the Aruban police had already spent over $3 million on investigating this case. Aruban police desperately wanted to solve this case. Therefore, they asked the Netherlands to take over the case. Joran and the Kelpo brothers were arrested again on November 21, 2007, but the result was the same as last time. Due to the lack of evidence, the judge ordered to release all three of them. On December 18th, the prosecutor officially declared the case closed, and that no charges would be filed due to the lack of evidence. On January 31, 2008, 3 years after the disappearance of Natalee, a Dutch crime reporter claimed that he had solved the Natalee case. He spent around $25,000 and hired a Dutch businessman and an ex-convict to approach Joran and make friends with him, and most importantly, to gain his confidence. The businessman and Joran was in a van with hidden cameras and microphone. Joran had no idea he was being recorded. Let's take a look at the recorded footage.
Nooit met iemand praten, het is ook niet makkelijk nu ook.
Ik weet het Joran, weet je, maar sommige dingen af en toe moet je kwijt.
Ja, het is maar, zo wordt nooit meer. Nee.
Ze hebben de zee gedaan. Ja, alleen? Hoe ben je gaan zwemmen of zo? Wat dan? Dat is toch bizar, dat kan toch niet worden?
Ja, kijk, ik ken ook wel mensen op Aruba. Ik heb ook wel, ook met die leeftijd ging ik ook met mensen die me ook helpen.
Tuurlijk,
ja. Het liefst noem ik die mensen gewoon helemaal niet, want hun hebben nooit, en dan ook al dit. Ze zijn altijd voor mij goed geweest, ik ben altijd voor hun goed geweest daar. Ja. Dus ja, wie het is ga ik ook niet noemen, maar het is niet mijn ouders, noem maar ook. Maar ja, iemand die gewoon echt een goede vriend van me is. Ja,
dat is klaar joh. Als je met een boot weggebracht gaat naar buiten, ja, verder dan 2 mijl, dan is er nooit meer terug hoor.
Ja, nee, maar kijk, deze vriend van mij is ook best slim, hij is ook wel wat ouder. En,
maar waarom zou hij dat willen doen voor jou dan?
Ja, we zijn al vanaf...
de jongste van vrienden. Ja, kijk Joran, als je mensen zou bellen en zou zoiets zijn, weet je. Ik zou jou ook helpen, maar ja, je moet daar goed over nadenken, weet je.
Ja. Maar ja, deze persoon, ja, dat is gewoon, ik zou ze, weet je, zijn naam zou gewoon tot me gaf, noem ik dat niet, want...
Joran was furious after seeing the release footage and stated that he was telling the individual what he wanted to hear and denied any involvement in Natalee's disappearance. The Aruba police asked the prosecutor to arrest Joran after the footage was released, but surprisingly, the prosecutor refused, and the reason was the description that Joran gave in the footage did not match with the physical evidence we have from the investigation. Therefore, we can't arrest Joran. On February 23, 2010, it was reported that Joran had stated in an interview that he had disposed Natalee's body in a swamp on Aruba. New chief prosecutor indicated that authorities had investigated the latest story and had dismissed it. He stated that the locations, names, and the times he gave just didn't make sense. During another interview, Joran alleged that he sold Natalee through human trafficking to Venezuela, receiving money when Natalee was taken and later on to keep quiet. Joran later retracted the statement. On March 29, 2010, Joran contacted Natalee's family with an offer to reveal the location of Natalee's body and the circumstances surrounding her death if he was given advance of $25,000 against a total of $2,500,000. After Elizabeth notified the FBI, they arranged to proceed with the transaction. On May 10th, Joran had a $15,000 wire transfer to his account in the Netherlands, following the receipt of $10,000 in cash that was videotaped by undercover investigators in Aruba. Joran told Beth that he buried Natalee's body under her house, but authorities stated that the information that he provided was false, because the house in which he said Natalee's body was located had not yet been built at the time of her disappearance. Later, Beth received an email from Joran, where he confessed that he actually didn't know where Natalee was. He lied to her. As we all know by now, this Joran guy pretty much lied about everything he said. It is safe to say that none of the statements he made were true. On June 3rd, Joran was charged in the U.S. District Court of North Alabama with extortion and wire fraud. The arrest warrant was quickly transmitted to Interpol, but no one can locate Joran, and the reason was he was busy dealing with another possible murder case in Peru. On May 30th, 2010, 5 years to the day after Natalee's disappearance, Stephanie Flores Ramirez, a 21-year-old business student, was reported missing in Lima, Peru. She was found dead 3 days later in the hotel room, registered in Joran's name. According to the hotel's security footage, Joran was seen entering and exiting the hotel with Stephanie. On June 3rd, Joran was arrested in Chile on a murder charge and extradited to Peru on the next day. Joran confessed to killing Stephanie after he lost his temper because she accessed his laptop without permission and found information linking him to Natalee. Joran told Peruvian police that he knew where Natalee's body was and offered to help Aruban authorities to find it. However, Peruvian police stated that the interrogation was limited to their case in Peru and that questions about Natalee's disappearance were avoided. On June 11th, Joran was charged in Lima Superior Court with first-degree murder and robbery, and was plead guilty and was sentenced to 28 years in prison. After he served his time with Peruvian prison, he would then be extradited to the United States to face more charges. During an interview from the prison, Joran admitted to the extortion plot, stating, "I want to get back to Natalee's family. Her parents have been making my life tough for 5 years." On November 12, 2010, a tourist found a jawbone on Aruban beach. Preliminary examination by a forensics expert determined that the bone was from a young woman. A part of the bone was sent to the lab for testing by the Netherlands Forensics Institute. On November 23, 2010, Aruba police announced that based on dental records, the jawbone does not belong to Natalee, and it was not even possible to determine whether it had come from a woman or man. On January 12, 2012, Natalee had been missing for 6 years. Alabama courts declared Natalee Holloway to be dead. Natalee went missing on May 30th, 2005, and Stephanie was murdered on May 30th, 2010, exactly 5 years apart. Is this a coincidence, or Joran planned it all alone? So what do you think happened to Natalee? Is she still alive? Maybe the only person that knows the truth is the abominable liar that is currently serving his jail time in the Peruvian prison.